Right, good evening, everybody. Good evening, members of the public, officers. Welcome to our meeting of our planning committee this evening on the 12th of August. Also, good evening to anybody who's watching on the webcast this evening. We'll go straight on to the agenda. Item 1, the agenda is apologies for absence. We do have 2 apologies this evening. Councillor Abbott, who hasn't appointed a substitute, I think rather late apology, but I do have a substitute, Councillor Williams, who is substituting for Councillor Spray, who has given her apologies. Otherwise, we have a full house. Item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest or other registrable interest relating to items on the agenda having regard to code of conduct for members? Councillor Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just maintaining my half attendance at committee meetings at the moment. So I'd like to declare an interest in item B and C of tonight's agenda, as I am the applicant for that application, and I shall leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Monday.
Likewise, for half attendance for the same applications, because I do paid work for the homeowner.
Thank you, Councillor Monday. Does anybody else, did I miss anybody else's hand go up? No. Okay, thank you very much, members. Now move on to item 3 of the agenda, which is minutes of the previous meetings. I have before me the minutes of the 2 meetings, one held on the 13th of May and the other on the 15th of July. Do you wish me to sign those correct record? Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Moved and seconded. I think Councillor Hooks had her hand up first, did you? Oh, right. So, all those in favour of me signing the minutes. Thank you, members. Right, item 4 on the agenda is public question time. We don't have any registered speakers on this item, so we'll move straight on to item 5 of the agenda, which is planning applications. We have 3 applications this evening. The first application is application, or item number 5A on the agenda. It is application number 25/00733 REM, which is land north of London Road, Kelvedon. And we do have 2 speakers on this application. So I'd like to call the first speaker to the table, please. That's Dr. Ricardo Pinto-Wright from the Kelvedon Fearing Health Centre. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. I wanted to come tonight. Thanks for having me. I'm just going to read my statement, which I think you all have copies of. Wanted to attend again to impress upon the councillors how important a new medical facility will be for all of our registered patients. The patients of Kelvedon Fearing Health Centre have had ongoing general practice care for many decades. The current partnership took over the 2 practices in 2018. Dr. Gil Robles and I have worked very hard to improve GP provision since that time. The partnership now consists of myself, Dr. Gil Robles, and since April of this year, 2025, Dr. Lachelt. We've gotten to know our patients' population and the demographics very well over the last several years, and we feel we understand the needs of our patients very well. Since January 2023, when I last attended this building for the inquiry for the allowed planning appeal, the practice population has increased by more than, 500 patients. We've been very busy looking to the future, and as such, we've expanded our medical team, and we've recruited to date a new partner, as I mentioned above, and 3 further associate or salary GPs, team of practice nurses and HCA's healthcare assistants who we employ. They all work regularly for us. We are in urgent need of this new state-of-the-art facility. The issues we face are numerous in regards to the age of the existing 19th century building we work from. The lack of a lift restricts patients with disabilities from seeing a clinician upstairs in room 6. That we have recruited several GPs and are set up for the succession matters. We have a severe shortage of room space, which has meant that we can only ever have 4 GPs working on the same day. Within a new building, or GPs or others that we may decide to recruit would be able to increase capacity with the new building proposed, and the patients would be seen in a modern, efficient, and secure facility. At present, conditions on very cold days here are challenging with a very old and not very green oil heater. In the summer, when it is warm outside, it can be unbearable inside, like today. These are but a few examples of the challenges we face trying to provide 21st century medical care from a 200-year-old former schoolhouse. We urgently require a new fit-for-purpose medical center. The new medical center will allow us to register more patients, as we'll have many more consulting rooms, and provide improved care as the new facility has been designed to incorporate the latest technology. We would hope to be able to provide on-site physiotherapy, minor surgical procedures, mental health nurse appointments, midwife antenatal appointments, and much more. That is impossible due to the severe limitations in the current building. The site for the new build has been future-proofed, finishing out, with further expansion that may be required factored into the plans. The patient population deserves a medical center that we can all be proud of. If this building does not proceed, I'm sorry to say that all the hard work that we are doing would likely mean that GPs and nurses would choose to go elsewhere, as this is what we have all been waiting for. We are very pleased to be working so closely with Barrett David Wilson Homes on this endeavor. The project will be BREEAM Excellent Compliant Building. It has the support of the patients, NHS England, the ICB, and the local MP, Priti Patel. Thank you for consideration in this very important matter on behalf of my partners and the patients.
Thank you, Dr. Pinto-Wright. The next person we should speak on this application is Mr. Ray Houghton. If you'd like to come forward, Mr. Houghton.
Good evening, members. My name is Ray Houghton, and I'm the Head of Planning at Barrett David Wilson, Eastern Counties. We have won the HBF 5-Star House Build Award every consecutive year since 2010 for good reason. We deliver top quality homes with materials that stand the test of time, which maximise efficiency, so helping to reduce homeowners' running costs. Our division is Chelmsford based, and we know what it makes each district within Essex count. We have worked closely with the design officer and the proposed traditional designs and a carefully selected palette of materials that is befitting for Kelvedon. Further, we are builders, not land promoters, and we do not land bank. If approved, as per the officer's recommendation, we will build more than just new homes. We will build a new medical centre that Kelvedon and Fearing so desperately need. We've worked closely with the GPs and the NHS over the last 12 months to ensure the BREEAM Excellent Medical Centre will be fit for purpose and is future-proofed with everything a modern surgery needs. This in stark contrast perhaps to financial contributions which can often take years to translate into real infrastructure. We will also build early. The medical centre is expected before the 10th dwelling is occupied. This is tangible bricks and mortar infrastructure and guarantees delivery of much-needed affordable homes. We are a developer that listens, and we've engaged thoroughly, including having presented 4 times to yourselves as part of the members' forum, and we are very grateful to members for the time invested. We've listened to councillors and residents and will install a new signalised crossing on London Road. This significant community asset is over and above what the Section 106 requires, and also will significantly improve the highways safety and connectivity for pedestrians and cyclists on London Road. This was a key factor that originated from the engagement that took place. We also heard from residents who told us how important sustainability is to them. That is why we'll install EV charging infrastructure for every home. It is why we've chosen energy-efficient materials that keep energy bills down. This is also why the development will result in a biodiversity net gain of well over 10%, and it's actually going to be probably 20% plus. Our proposal comes complete with a range of 120 affordable homes, including starter homes and family-sized homes, and is based on feedback we received over an evolution to understand what people might require locally in terms of housing need. This meaningful contribution offers hope to any Braintree residents who may feel trapped in unsuitable accommodation or who aspire to own a home of their own. Tonight, you have the opportunity to do your bit to bring new modern medical centre to Kelvedon and Fearing, enabled through the delivery of high-quality homes. I hope you will take this opportunity to approve our application. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll now move on to the presentation by the officers, which is going to be given by Neil. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members. So the application is for approval of the reserve matters, so that's access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale, pursuant to the outline planning permission. The reserve matters we're concerned with the health centre and the 300 residential dwellings and the vehicular northern access, and then sort of subsidiary infrastructure, so foul water pumping station, substation allotments, open space, bund and so on, as you can see there. So if we move through, so this is the application site. So what we're concerned with is the area within, highlighted in red. You can see there's a couple of areas which are cut out in blue. So this is the position of the southern access down here. So that's got reserved matters approval for access already. So that's not part of our consideration tonight. This area here is where the proposed care home would go. So that's also not before us. And this is the area where the retail units and the early years nursery would go. So we're concerned with the rest of the site here and the health centre, which is going between the two community uses there. So just to highlight, there was a slight change in the location plan after it was originally submitted. So originally the northern access, which was sort of 5-6 metres coming off London Road here, was approved for a full permission. But the red line's been changed to include the northern access. So we've already approved it once for a full permission, but to make the permission more effective and efficient in terms of conditions and so on, the applicant's including that again. So we've already approved the northern access once, but we're also trying to, or seeking to approve it again through the reserve matters tonight. So just in terms of context, very quickly, so this is the A12 coming past Kelvedon. So this is the junction coming off. Got London Road coming along here. So this is the application site on the left-hand side before you come to the main part of the village. And then sort of the other main point is the railway line, which runs along the back of the application site just there. We have got some listed buildings to be aware of. So we've got Crabs Farm, which is just beyond the application site, just down here. And then we've got closest, we've got a number of listed buildings, 4 listed buildings at Church Hill Farm, which is just to the east of the site there. So as part of the outline planning permission, although it was subsequently varied, we have got an approved land use parameter plan. So you can see the orange areas are the residential parcels, green being the open space, and then the red area here is the combined area for the care home, retail units, and importantly for us tonight, the health centre which runs through the middle there. So the plans that are before us for the reserve matters approval are consistent with the parameter plan. And this is a planning layout showing the whole of the site. What I'll try and do is go through the health centre, cover that in a few slides and then move on to the housing after that. So the health centre is located as you come in. So the main sort of spine road is going to come past here and loop around. So the vehicular access will be in off the principal street here. So you'll have an elevation facing the road here. The main entrance will be coming through here from the car park. So we've got 32 spaces shown on that plan there, which accords with the requirement from the NHS. And then this shows the ground floor accommodation. So you've got reception area, waiting room, and then the consulting rooms primarily down here. And we've got first floor accommodation, which is sort of staff and office accommodation. And then you can see on the single-storey element over the top of the consulting rooms, we've got solar panels array on that roof. And then on the two-storey element, I've included there's further panels on the top, so right across the roof. So these are two of the elevations. So this is the north and the west elevation. So since it was originally submitted, a number of changes have been made. So we've asked the developer to change the colour of the brick. So it's still a red multi, but slightly darker. We've looked at how to make the entrance more legible, which you can see there. There's a number of other changes that have been made to try and pick up some of the issues and make the building stronger in terms of design. When it was discussed at Members' Forum previously, I know the early comments that we received from members of the public were that they didn't feel the building was in keeping with the village. But I think the point with the building is it needs to function. So you heard from the practice how important it is, but they have the range of facilities and space to be able to treat people in accordance with modern standards. So really we obviously have a footprint of building here where we know the amount of space that the practice need to meet medical needs in the village. And then what we're trying to do is design that efficiently and cost effectively so it functions for the practice and the NHS, and then come up with a building design externally, an elevational treatment which works. So we think this is an honest approach. So it's predominantly red brick, which we think is appropriate for the village. There is an element of black panelling here. So these are black cement panels here. And there are samples that the developer has provided. So you can just see, anybody who's looked at the red sample, I think perhaps the images on the screen appear a little bit darker in terms of the colour of the brick, but it is a darker red multi-brick. And there's also a sample of the concrete panel which members could look at if they wanted to before we determine the application. Just one sort of zooming in, I think there was a concern about the amount of brickwork and that it was and its appearance. So just when you come in and look closer, there are brick details within the building design to sort of increase the appeal of the building, visual appeal of the building, and break up the massing. The windows, we have agreed this brick detail, which is currently a header here, is extended around, and that picks up on one of the details that's being used in one of the houses elsewhere. So the developer has agreed to that, and we're covering that by way of condition. So the drawings don't completely represent what's been agreed and what will be built, but they're very close. And it's really just that detail, the bricks around the window that haven't been caught. So moving on, the land use plan just shows the different uses within the site. So we've just talked about the health centre down here. So you can see that proximity to the northern entrance here. Then you can see the extent of the open space, predominantly around the edge, but also this retained sort of ditch, hedgerow coming through here, coming down to the southern entrance. We've got an allotment site which will be offered to the parish council at the back here, the blue. Got a community orchard area as part of the open space, and then the blue is the suds basins. You can see there's a number of play areas dotted around the site. So that's how the site breaks down. It's predominantly two-storey in terms of the residential development. There are some 2.5-storey buildings along the spine road here. There are some single-storey buildings and some bungalows here. But you can see, and 1.5-storey, chalet bungalows just over here, but you can see the majority of the housing is traditional two-storey. Parking is predominantly on plot, usually to the side. All of the properties comply with minimum parking standards, and a significant number exceed the parking standards. Some of the larger houses exceed by quite a considerable way. All of the properties will be provided with EV chargers, including the apartments. There are some instances where there is some what we would call on-street parking, but that has been designed in a way that we're comfortable, so where it's perpendicular to the houses at the front, but that's something we've seen elsewhere and has been designed appropriately here. It's 40% affordable housing that's being provided across the site. We've got the developers proposing they have two outlets or two brands. So you can see the eastern parcel will be developed under the Barratt brand. and you can see the red showing the affordable rent, green shared ownership on that side, and then the blue and the orange on the David Wilson side on the other side, on the western side of the site. So the affordable housing mix was agreed as part of the Section 106 agreement, and that's what we've got here. I'm not going to go through all of the house types because there's a lot, but I've just put a few in to try and give a flavour from some of the different areas. So this is one of the 2.5-storey properties, which is on the Spine Road. So you can see this particular version has got a rendered elevation to the front and the sides. Brick coining's been added here on the corners, which is a traditional detailing that we found elsewhere in the village. So that's that one. This is some of the apartments on the site. So these are a selection of a collection of 1 and 2 bed apartments. So here we've got the gable, first floor of the gable being picked out in a render, the rest of the property being clad externally in brick. This is another house type, the Toodley. This is within the granary area, so this is up close to Churchill Farm. So you can see this building's got cladding, white cladding or white boarding on the front, and then it's got a brick pier to the sides to enclose, and then the side and the rear elevations are in brick. So although we've got that mix of materials, we've got a good detail to give a clean connection between the materials. This is a 4-bed house from one of the other character areas. So you can see, again, the render wrapping around on this property. 3-bed semi-detached houses. So this is one of the houses where the roofs are hipped. So that was something which, again, the developer's done as a result of comments from our urban design consultant, to try and reduce the bulk and the mass of some of the houses, but also to pick up on a characteristic which is seen on some of the houses nearby. And again, hipped roof on this different 3-bed semi-house. This one has the render at first floor, brick at ground floor, but there's appropriate detail between the two materials, and then the transition to the brick on the sides has also been done appropriately. There's a small number of terrace houses. So this is a 2-bed house in this arrangement as a terrace of 3. And this is a 2- and 3-bed house side by side. So again, you can see that first floor gable element rendered, the majority of the house brick. And then a 3-bed house detached, again, first floor render to the front, brick to the side. And then this is the chalet bungalow, the 1.5-storey property that I showed. So there's a couple of these. And then these are probably, will give a better feel. So these are the coloured up images. So these are the different street scenes. So this is the central spine. So this is where it runs through. So these are the houses that are running through here. The street scenes run through here. So you can see these are larger houses. What we've tried to do with the changes, as you can see, is get a mix of materials, so some more render, but we've tried to reduce the instances where we've got the mix of render and brick or other mix of materials. So there are still some of these, so you can see here on the corners, for example, we've got the mix, but we've tried to simplify it. So it's there's more buildings which are either entirely rendered, like these, or entirely brick. So this is the granary, so this is a different area. So these are the blue houses on the plan here, just up by Churchill Farm. So this is also been simplified. So this is either white boarding to front elevations or brick. So these are the green streets, so running down through here. So again, some of the larger houses on this street. So again, we've tried to simplify, so we've got more rendered properties here of these larger units and more brick. So we've not tried to mix and match the materials so much. So this is a sort of cleaner character area in terms of materiality. The northern edge, which is facing towards the bund at the top. So again, slightly different selection of materials, more hipped roofs on these streets, as you can see, running through. So that's a constant theme. So we're moving away from having a character area which has quite so many gables as a predominant feature. And then these are the secondary streets. So these are the sort of really pinky colours within the central areas here. So I'll just run through these. So there's 3 of these. So you can see more of a range of render colours within these areas, as well as the brick. And then this is the western quarter, so down facing out towards what's currently open countryside on the western boundary. So larger houses again, slightly different materials. So we've got some green render in these and a bit of boarding, which gives that sort of slightly more organic sort of village mix on the edge. So that's a rather busy materials plan, but that's just showing the mix of materials across the site. So that covers the range of roof materials and external cladding. So you can see there are sort of themes within the streets. So you can see we're not mixing and matching every single property, so there's more of a consistency, but there is a mix across the site overall. So the landscape general arrangement, I think we've touched on that already, so I'll just move past that. There are a number of different play areas which you'll have seen within the pack. So this is just one of the play areas. So this is play area number 3, so up over on the eastern side of the site. So you can see a range of sort of smaller toddler play equipment, some sort of more natural play equipment, as well as some more equipped play, but also benches and bins. So there's 5 of the play areas dotted around the site of varying sizes and styles. Then some photos of the site just to try and show some context for the railway line. So this is standing at the northern end of the site, probably towards the middle. And you can see the train going on the track there. So the track here, this end of the site, the eastern end of the site, is slightly raised, sort of drops down more to grade as you come through, and this is sort of looking over to the west. So you can see the track more at grade with the site there. So to protect the future residents, there is an acoustic bund. That was always known to be the case, but this is starting to get to the details of what that's going to look like. So we've had a number of sections provided through the bund, and I should point out that the bund has been quite extensively redesigned from the original proposals in response to comments, particularly from the parish council. So due to the changing height of the track relative to the site, the bund will vary in height, so the sections show a difference from ground level of between 2.3 metres and 5.6 metres. What we've got is a range of gradients moving across. So originally it was quite a uniform engineered appearance, but the gradient now varies as you move through from between 1 in 4 and 1 in 10. So quite a significant difference as you move through. But the sections, I've just drawn one out here, all show sort of clearly ground level of development, height of the bund and the gradient. So this one's 1 in 4. And then you can see the back edge of the application site here, and a maintenance zone, and then the railway track over here. So that's those. So that the bund is necessary to provide that sort of screening for the residents to make sure that all residents have a reasonable standard of amenity inside their properties. The bund is going to be extensively landscaped, so you can see rather than just covering it in grass, there are proposals for planting on it, a mixture of shrubs and grasses. The intention is to actually try and make it more part of the usable space, so where we've got sort of the lower gradients, we can actually have mown grass paths running through the lower parts of the slopes. And there's also proposals to include play facilities, some of the informal play facilities within the site as well, within the bund as well. So looking back down through the site, so this picture back here, we're looking back down from the back of the site towards London Road. So you can just see the properties on London Road, which the site wraps around at a slightly lower level at the bottom. We've got the ditch running back through the site as well, which has been retained within that sort of spine green open space. Got some photos here to show the relationship of the site to the properties on London Road. So these properties have quite deep gardens at the moment. The quality of means of enclosure is sort of variable. We've got some people who've built structures, as you can see, sheds at the back. Others where it's a bit more open, but there is that point about the development site is at a higher level than the properties. So we have asked for additional information from the applicant to try and make it clear to members what's being proposed and the relationship. So you can see there's several sections here, so one down here through Chadwell and one further up here. So this shows the floor level of the proposed dwellings here and their gardens. There's a landscape strip which has been proposed, which is shown on the plans. Then the neighbours' gardens here, so you can see long gardens. So all of the gardens, or sorry, all of the properties, if you're looking at a back-to-back distance between the houses, back-to-back, you're looking at least 43 metres. So Essex Design Guide would say where you've got flats, for example, where you've got habitable rooms which are overlooking existing properties, there should be at least 35 metres distance separation between. So we've got a separation distance which exceeds. So although the houses are at a higher level, by virtue of the separation distance, which will also be supplemented by the landscape buffer, which will be planted up, we feel this is an acceptable relationship between the new housing and the existing housing. And there's just another couple of sections there to demonstrate that further through. So Churchill Farm to the east has those listed buildings, which includes the listed barn. So the site does come up quite close. There is open space around it. We have asked for a boundary treatment to protect that property, because it is quite open in places at the moment and needs something which is appropriate, particularly down here towards the front of the site. This is the driveway just over here for Churchill Farm, and it's quite open in places at the moment. So the means of enclosure plan at the moment does show a fence line running round the back of the property here and down the side, but doesn't extend down to the front. So we do think that is important, that that is protected to guard against, or guard for the amenity of the residents next door. So we've recommended a condition to cover that. And now I've included some photos just of the context. So these are some properties nearby on London Road. So you can see there are some properties which have that half brick, half render appearance. Got a number of properties which are fully rendered in different colours. Got some which are wholly brick. And then just moving down towards sort of the high street, this is perhaps the more traditional image, which is perhaps more synonymous with Kelvedon. You can see here we've got part render, part brick. Got more render properties and a stronger range of colours again. Just in terms of issues to update on, so we have produced an update report since the committee report was originally published. One of the points to pick up on is land at Cranes Lane. So this is the site immediately adjacent. So the site we're talking about is to the east here. So this is land at Cranes Lane, which we had an outline application for up to 100 dwellings and up to 2,500 square metres of commercial use. That was refused by the council. We had a hearing recently, and disappointingly the inspectors allowed the appeal. There was talk at the appeal about connections to the Barratt site. So the appellant was asking for a feeder road connection, so they actually wanted a vehicular connection from the Barratt site, as well as pedestrian and cycle connections. So the inspector did consider that. So they said it would be, in their opinion, desirable and may benefit future occupiers to provide them with access to services and facilities. However, they noted there was no requirement on the developer of the London Road site to provide connections. And they also noted, which the council pointed out, that there was a ransom strip. So Barratt, when they bought the site, bought up to 1 metre of the boundary of the land that we originally considered. The landowner has retained a ransom strip 1 metre beyond. So even had we asked the developer, Barratt David Wilson, to provide a connection to the boundary of their land, that wouldn't actually connect to the appeal site. So on that basis, the inspector said it wasn't really something that they wanted to become involved with, didn't feel they needed to. They considered that the access arrangements to the appeal site were good enough in their view to approve the scheme as it was, so they didn't impose a condition. We, as officers, for similar reasons, aren't recommending that there is a condition. We have spoken to the developer about this. They have confirmed that they are willing to provide or to discuss pedestrian cycle connections with the developer of the adjoining site as and when that comes forward. They have noted that there is a difference in levels, a slight difference in levels between the site. There are also issues around sort of existing hedgerow and landscaping, whereby if their scheme was to have to change, that potentially has implications for them in terms of how their scheme was assessed. So it's not a straightforward matter. And as a developer, they certainly didn't want to be held up waiting for the adjoining developer to speak to them about how the links could work, where they would want them to be, how they would function with the layout and so on. So it's proposed that it is left for the appellant or the developer of the adjoining site to speak to the landowner and the developer in the future. And certainly we would encourage that discussion around pedestrian and cycle connections. But the Highway Authority and planning officers certainly don't think vehicular connection is desirable or necessary. There was a slight change in description, just to point out. So some of the conditions which the developer originally asked for, which they wanted to discharge through this condition, we haven't got sufficient details to discharge those, so they've been omitted from the description of development. But we have got sufficient information to discharge conditions 17 and 18, so that's around foul water and surface water drainage, and also partially discharge condition 6. So in summary, the principle of development was established through the Outline Planning Permission. We're dealing with the reserve matters for the health centre and the houses. The development is in accordance with the approved land use parameter plan. The scheme has been refined through the course of the application. As we've set out in the update report, there's been a number of revisions made to address the concerns of the Highway Authority around adoption and around officers around design. So that's why there's been a number of revised plans that have been submitted this week. But those have all been discussed with us prior to them being submitted. So when we were writing the committee report, we very much had those changes in mind. And indeed, the committee report was predicated on those changes being made. So the changes are minor in nature, although they're important, we think, in terms of approving the scheme. But we didn't think they were necessary to go out to public consultation again. The application's been consulted on twice. We've considered the comments from public and consultees carefully, and we don't think any of the changes that have been made here warranted further publication and further delay in the determination of the application. So as we've outlined within the committee report, which I won't go through, there are issues or there are concerns around the mix of the market housing that's been proposed here, but we accept that can't be controlled because that wasn't controlled by a condition on the outline which the inspector granted. And there certainly have been concerns around the elevational treatment of the health centre, but we think we've addressed those. We acknowledge that the applicant has made a number of amendments to the scheme. There are still some residual concerns around local distinctiveness and the number of large houses, and particularly the number of large houses with studies. But on balance, we think the reserve matters are considered to be acceptable in planning terms and can be recommended for approval. We have got just a few additional plans which were confirmed this afternoon. So in terms of the drawings that we circulated in earlier, the approved plans, we didn't list the health centre plans. We were just waiting for confirmation of those. So if members are minded to approve, we recommend that these additional plans are listed as part of the approved plans just to cover the health centre. And we are recommending a late last change to condition 24. So that's in addition to the changes to conditions 1 and 11 that we've circulated previously. So this is just around permitted development rights. So there is a slight concern that some of the roof forms, particularly where we've got hipped roofs, could lend themselves to roof alterations by future occupants, which could be quite unneighbourly potentially. So we think it would be prudent to withdraw PD rights, which usually allow householders to alter their roof with dormers and roof lights without first getting planning permission from the council. So that is an amendment to condition 24. I should just add, we've noticed a slight error in the update report, for which I apologise. We've listed conditions 28 and 29 as additional conditions, That should have been conditions 27 and 28. And then just going back to the recommendations, so we're recommending approval here for the health centre and the 300 dwellings and public open space and ancillary development. That's subject to the conditions and informatives which were in the original committee report, the officer update report, albeit with the numbering changed slightly, the amended condition 24 on the previous slide, and the additional plans which we've circulated in the update report and on the previous slide. Apologies for the long presentation. It's quite a large development with quite a number of elements, and there's been quite a lot of changes, so we wanted to make sure we explained the development reasonably to members. But obviously, if there's any questions following the presentation, I'd be happy to try and help. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you very much for that really detailed report. I think that's been really helpful to all the members taking us through it so carefully. Can I also just say publicly, I'd like to thank the Parish Council for all their input in this process. I think it's been valued by everybody, and I know they've put in an awful lot of work. So that being said, I'll then pass over to members for their comments on this application. Councillor Diamond.
It's a question rather than a comment, if that's okay. We've touched on this, but I could just do with some clarification. Will the affordable housing be tenure blind? And how will local priority be secured? We want to ensure this meets local needs and be clear how people can access these homes. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Diamond. Yep, so the housing is all designed to be tenure blind. To the extent that even the parking arrangements are designed to be tenure blind. So some of the houses have got the perpendicular parking at the front, that we just spoke about, but that's also applied to some of the market housing as well. So we've tried to make sure in all aspects it is tenure blind. In terms of the local need, so the local authority would have 100% nomination rights on the affordable housing for the initial lets, and then 75% on subsequent lets. So that would be people who are registered through the home choice system, so they apply through that. So that would hopefully try and make sure we try and meet local need. Share ownership works slightly differently, but again, I think there is, from memory, there is marketing for people who have expressed an interest previously in shared ownership within the district. So they would be aware of it before it is offered more widely. So it's not sort of exclusive rights, but they would be certainly made aware of it.
That was really helpful, thank you.
Okay.
And Councillor Bowes-Flint.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Is there one developer here or two developers is my first question.
Yeah. So it's Barratt David Wilson Homes. So it's one developer, one company, but they operate two brands. So I think it's envisaged that as you drive past the site, you would see a Barratt sort of flag and Barratt Sales Centre, and there would be a Barratt house range. So that was on the eastern side. And then it's David Wilson is the other brand on the western side. So I think it's envisaged they would have their separate centre. So they're owned by the same company, and it's the same team that we're dealing with, but they have different brands.
There is a reason for me asking that, and the planning officers will definitely know why I'm asking that, because when we have two different builders on a site and we want a road built, we don't seem to be able to appear to get it built. So that was my concern there. Also, along the railway, the houses that are going to be adjacent to where the railway is, are they going to be all affordable homes?
If I move back to the slide, if that's okay. So we've got on the western side, the David Wilson side, we've got a mix of shared ownership and rental nearest the Bund. And then on the Barratt side, these are market dwellings in the middle here, shared ownership there, and affordable rent. So a mix.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. And I hear your words of praising the parish council, which I know that they did come to the forum and make representations and were listened to. However, their objections to the medical centre almost come over as being a little bit ungrateful to me. Might just be the way that I'm reading it, but I think most parishes would welcome with open arms in this day and age, a medical centre of that distinction. And I think the people of Kelvedon and Fearing, should this get approved, will be extremely lucky to have such a centre in their village, because we all know which way the health service is going at the moment and the way that the ICBs are going. So, and being particularly close to both, I actually welcome this, and I don't think the building is that bad, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to pick up on a point made by Councillor Bowles-Flint on the health centre, I think sometimes you do need some distinction between the health centre, even though it's in a village-type setting or a domestic setting, whilst you can't always mirror the look and feel of a domestic outlet. It's serving a function, and it needs to have that functional purpose. So to have some distinction to it, I think, is quite a bold move in this instance. We're not talking like a typical village surgery here. We're talking about a health centre that will serve the needs of a wider population rather than just the development that it's going to be sited on. There's no doubt about it, this development will change the landscape or the feel for Kelvedon for many, many years to come. And I think it's only right that the developer has taken time to engage with us on 4 separate occasions and taken into account some of the views, or taken into account a number of views of the community that this is going to be set in. And just to pick up again on a point made by Councillor Bowles-Flint, we hear time and time again the issues of other neighbouring developments, particularly towards Silver End, that are suffering from the cumulative impact of development after development. I think this is a really, really good win for not just the residents of Kelvedon and Fearing, but also a win for the district. And if anything, what this should be is an exemplar of how house builders, when working together with communities, can deliver for not just housing and the housing need, but also for the healthcare needs of those who are going to move into the development. I do have a very quick question, if that's okay, and remind me if this was brought up during the planning forums, please, Neil. The rear or the boundary setting where the railway line runs, you showed a few slides of how that bund would look. And there probably is, because I think it would be naive if there wasn't, but it wasn't shown on the actual bund drawing. But will there be mitigation in place to stop trespassing onto the railway line for the safety of those on this development? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yeah, you're quite right to question that. So that's something that the police and British Transport Police raised. So the developer's aware that there will need to be a new boundary treatment. I did smile. The Network Rail comment says they expect the developer to undertake a survey of the existing fence. Well, if you can find the existing fence, it's three wires. So I think the survey perhaps won't show much that's use. But yeah, the developer will need to provide a boundary fence. There is, I don't know if you can see on the plan, there is an estate railing on top of the bund. I'm a little bit concerned about whether that's the most appropriate treatment, given, although the developers worked really hard to try and get a better gradient facing the development and make it a more usable feature here. The consequence is that we're still quite a steep drop off at the back there. So I think we need something which is not necessarily sort of a palisade fence that you usually have a railway line on top of the bund, because I think that would look awful. So I think there'll be a palisade fence on the boundary, or to be agreed with Network Rail, to protect the railway. I think there needs to be something effective in terms of a fence on top of the bund to prevent a child perhaps crawling under, falling over and coming down, not ending up on the railway line, but just, falling. So I think there's just a bit more thought around that. But yes, there certainly will be an appropriate boundary treatment, which will be agreed by us, but in connection, or in consultation, I should say, with Network Rail.
Councillor Schwer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to sort of echo the comments from Councillor Bowles-Flint and Ricky. because this planning application has evolved over time with the benefit of the planning forum, with the officers and the developers being present, and indeed comments on this planning committee taking into account the design, but also what is really, I think, quite important, as was mentioned, is actually the delivery of infrastructure. All too often we have been having planning applications and the criteria is about delivery of infrastructure. On this occasion, I think it's really important to note and praise the developer for the incorporation of this to future-proof for the whole residents of not only Kelvedon, but as Councillor Bowers-Flint and the surrounding area as well, which is, a lot of it is rural, and it's going to future-proof this, and this is the important point, and that again comes back to the functional design of this building. We mustn't get lost in romanticism about the design of a few buildings nearby. We need to be able to provide that functionality and care, and it's incredibly important for our residents going forward. So I'm very pleased to see that facility with a number of car parking, the fact there will be the opportunity for perhaps minor local operations to reduce travel, to provide better care. So I welcome all of that. Also, overall, I just wanted to mention the increase in the biodiversity net gain, and generally how, with officers, as I mentioned, this has evolved into being a really good development that is great not only for the district, but I think actually part of Essex, and I think it's hats off, and could we see a lot more like this, because that evolvement and taking into account of consideration over time, I think has resulted in a much better development, design, the social housing, the whole lot. It's been much improved, and I welcome that. Thank you.
Councillor Beavis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I do echo a lot of the comments that have been made, and thanking the team for their presentation again. And I think the forum does pay off. I'm still slightly nervous about the medical centre. Probably officers would understand why that is, because I'm still looking at plans now for the Sybil Hedingham Medical Centre all these years later. And you know, good luck to the developer in bringing this one forward, sort of front-loaded as it were. And I completely get that the building needs to be functional, but my personal view is I just still find it very austere. I just find it very over-bricked. And I know when we had it at the planning forum, we spoke about, was there opportunity to bring in some planters, or, I mean, I might have missed it, but I'm not really getting a feel for any landscaping around that medical centre, and I may just have missed that, so I wouldn't just mind a bit more clarity on that. Thank you, Chairman.
So there's a couple of points there. So around the delivery, I mean, this is this is a different situation to the Hedingham situation. So the Hedingham situation was that the developer there was required to provide land, and then it was left for others to build the surgery, and that's fundamentally different to here, to a situation where the outline planning permission, which the original landowner agreed with the council, with officers, was that the health centre will be provided by the developer, and it will be linked to the occupational dwellings. So, and that's under the 106, the developer is unable to occupy more than 10 dwellings until the health centre is provided. Just in terms of confidence, I mean, this is the only application I've had, or the only development I've had where the NHS have contacted me and asked me when it's going to planning committee and is there anything they can do to help. So whereas it's usually us who's asking them to do something and they are the delay, it's almost like they've been chastising me for not reporting the application soon enough. In terms of the landscaping, I think one of the comments that was raised at the forum was the view of this elevation of the building here. So it's sort of the back of the building. So that is predominantly brick with a door and not much else. That is not the most attractive elevation of the building for sure. The developer pointed out, I think, at the forum, that the care home will be built here, or is proposed to be built here. That will include landscaping on their site, so it wouldn't be as open as it might appear on the plans we've got at the moment. But what the applicant has done is they have increased the planting around, so this is where the sort of spine road comes through here. So there is quite a bit more planting here. They've put some additional trees around the edge of the car park. There are a couple of planters to the front of the building, but within the footprint that's available, there's a limit to what can be done. I think probably the comment I'd also make on landscaping is Dr. Pinto Rice and his colleagues are running a medical centre, and whilst obviously I'm sure they will maintain the building and the grounds, if we create something which is extensively landscaped with lots of shrubs and beds and so on, that either imposes a significant cost on them in terms of operating from the site, or if budgets are tight, and I can imagine within the NHS budgets are usually tight, then the danger would be that actually something could be shown on some plans which then isn't maintained. So I think what the landscape architect has tried to do is show plantings, there's some hedge plantings, some shrub plantings, some trees, but trying to do something which is probably reasonable in terms of ongoing maintenance. So I think they have tried to respond to the comments from the forum and from the parish council within the constraints of the site, bearing in mind the building needs to be designed so that it can be extended in the future as well. So it's not just what we're looking at here in terms of the building now and the car parking now, there is also thought as to what happens in the future. So that's around the landscaping. I think Chris was going to say something around the design of the building rather than me repeat myself again.
So just before I come on to design, Councillor Beavis, I was just going to pick up just in addition to the point around delivery for the health centre, because I think, as Neil said, there is a marked difference in terms of the approach that we've tried to take here, and it comes back to the original outline. So there was a very specific objective that we had as an officer team in relation to this site, and that's one of the reasons why the outline took so long to deal with and consider, but it was the hours that went into the negotiation around the 106 specifically to secure this provision and to put it essentially as a requirement on the developer to deliver the health centre. So, several of us, Neil, myself, Matt, who's not here tonight, who was involved in the original outline, this has been discussed and talked about for a long time. So I think that hopefully provides the background to the health centre. I think in terms of the design, I think several members already commented on this, that the form and function of the building does to a certain extent define the openings and the approach to the external appearance of the building. But I think where I would defend the proposal, I know the parish, some of the local residents have made comments about the building being quite stark, quite brutalist. I certainly wouldn't describe this as brutalist architecture. My own personal opinion on brutalist architecture is actually really positive, but this certainly isn't that. It's a building which I think is very honest in its appearance and its elevational treatment. The fenestration we've tried to enhance through the setting back of the windows, so there will be some natural shadow on the elevation. The elevations have got some really good detailing in terms of the brick banding, the additional sort of detailing we're trying to secure around the window headers. But actually that plan there does show, you can see that top brand where the bricks are effectively laid in a different way. That will add interest to the elevation. These are all quite subtle things, but when you actually see the building built, it won't just be a flat brick facade, which is certainly something that we wouldn't want to see for a building with this sort of high, what we call a solid to void ratio, so the amount of brick versus openings. But what we have tried to do, working with the applicant team, is to maximise that interest on the elevation. I think the brick sample and hopefully the material sample for the concrete gives quite a lot of comfort. So it looks, again, as Neil said, looks quite dark on the screen, and sometimes CGIs have that problem. But actually, you can see there is a really nice depth to the red and the multi-nature of the brick, which will, I think, reflect the character more locally within Kelvedon. the darker cladding, I think, is a nice contrast to it, and then you've also then got the canopy details and the downpipes and so forth, which are all finished. So I think when it's built, or if, assuming obviously depending on the outcome, but if it was built with those materials, actually the combination of the materials, I think, will hang together very successfully. To try to make it look like a more traditional building would actually be, I think, the wrong approach, but personally, and I think what you would end up with is a building that was neither one thing nor the other. And I think what this is, as I said, I think it's a much more honest representation of the building. And what we've tried to do is to get that detailing and those additional features on the building that will kind of make the elevations pop a little bit more and will sit more comfortably within the street scene. Hopefully those comments are helpful, Councillor Davis.
I think I had Councillor Bass finish. You wanted to come back briefly, did you?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Neil has basically covered it, but I just have to say that this cannot be compared with Sybil Hedingham whatsoever. Sybil Hedingham haven't got the doctors knocking on the door wanting to go in there. The difference is this has got Dr. Pinto Wright along with 3 other colleagues who, I have to say, for a village is a lot of doctors, and they obviously want to work there because the opportunities for them to work at any other surgery are great at the moment in Essex. They're like gold dust doctors, so I don't think this can be compared with. And when you look at that building, if you look at Braintree Hospital, it's no different. You know, it's a functional building that's serving a purpose, and that's what we've got to think of. And Dr. Pinto Wright said in his representation that the facilities they've got now are not fit for purpose, and they want to move into facilities where they can provide services that they cannot provide at the minute. So that has only got to enhance and better for the people of the surrounding villages. Now, we supplied a doctor's surgery in this very town for doctors who got up a petition to move, and they wanted to move. And when it came to it, they didn't want to move. This is totally, totally different. We've got a doctor who is willing and champing at the bit to go in there, and I think that we should be supporting him. Thank you.
Councillor Diamond.
While I understand there is a debate on the attractiveness of the building, I do feel this is a bit of a side issue. There's obviously a real need in the community. I think that comes first. I know I'm echoing what's been said there a little. I did have a quick question, a clarification, because I think we've touched on it already. What legal or financial mechanisms are in place to ensure that the health centre is delivered on time? And what is the fallback arrangement if the developer defaults? The reason why I ask this is that I had a fair few people come to me in my role as a councillor about different projects where things have not been promised in the way that delivered in the way they've been promised. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's the way it's controlled is through the Section 106 agreement. So that's an agreement, a legal agreement, which is the council is signatory, and it binds on future landowners. So it was originally signed by the original landowner. It now binds on the landowner, the developer. So that has an obligation in there which says the developer of the site, the landowner, will not occupy more than 10 dwellings until the health centre is available for occupation. If they were to occupy more than 10 dwellings, they'd be in breach of that agreement. So the legal remedy for the council would be to go to the High Court and seek an injunction. So that's not a cheap or an easy option, but it's certainly one that's available. I'm sure Chris and I would certainly be cognizant of the fact of how important the planning committee and members consider the health centre to be, should that situation arise in the future. But equally, I'm sure the developers heard how important members feel it is, and personally, I'd be surprised if the developer didn't fully honour that obligation, given the strength of feeling around the matter. And certainly everything that I know, like I say, from my dealings with the NHS, the developer team that's dealing specifically with the health centre, they are fully engaged, fully wanting to press ahead with it. As soon as they get the ticket, as they would term it, the planning permission and the approval from the committee, hopefully tonight.
That's brilliant, thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for allowing me to come back once more. It was almost to kind of follow from what Councillor Bell Flynn has said, to compare one development as Silver Headingham with this development. It's like trying to compare apples with pears, and it's no real point trying to pick off the scabs of something that we had no control over from the Silver Headingham perspective. And as Councillor Bowsley said, Dr. Pinto-Wright has articulated eloquently not just the need in the village for the doctor's surgery, but also the want to be able to be there too. Madam Chairman, often on planning committee we sometimes find these meetings quite dry, every other few weeks approving applications. This is an application before us this evening which we should all be really proud to get behind when this comes forward for moving and seconding this evening. There's not many applications that we sit here and approve whereby we can commit to a lasting legacy that will supersede us for the years to come. Like I said, sometimes, and I don't mean this personally, this can be quite dry as a committee, and this is one of those permissions this evening whereby we should be fully getting behind. I think I can count on one hand, minus a thumb and a little finger, how many permissions like this we actually get to approve that will have this type of benefit to so many, and I'll be really proud to put my name to a show of hands this evening. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I've been through this over the last week, I'm amazed at the way this site overall has evolved, and I truly believe that the housing areas are going to deliver a lovely place for people to live. These 300 houses are important, as is the health centre. I listened with care to the good doctor and the situation that they're currently in and the need for this health centre. I absolutely acknowledge the rightness of delivering it, and I think this is truly an exemplary way in which to make this happen. And I do think there's a point in keeping in mind Sybil Headingham, because that shows us the wrong way, in my view. The reason, how you do things is seriously important, and we have to learn how to get it right and try and steer things in the right direction. And I feel that the process has steered this site in the right direction. There were significant problems, and we all had reservations about different things, including finishes and all sorts of details, and details are important, on the houses. But you know darn well there's a however coming in this. And I'm not a romantic person. I just know that in order to deliver well-being to people, and well-being has an impact on health, you've got to create environments for them to live in that actually, by its own nature, in the same way as the police want design to make places secure, we should be designing to deliver well-being. Now, I listened carefully and have read the depositions from the parish councils, and I'm not going to surprise anybody who knows me by saying I have a great deal of sympathy with it. So to the health centre, this health centre has been designed, and it seems that the case being made in the room for me is something like, well, this is so important and we so much need it that we've just got to poke up with whatever somebody comes forward with, and they're arguing that form has followed function, with the implication that there were no alternatives. But everybody in this room must realise there are alternatives, and it doesn't have to absolutely look the way it does. We've had the word honest used. I'm glad that they putting large letters up to say what it is, because I wouldn't say it's honest. It's Orwellian. It sits at the gateway or entrance to this lovely development, and it sets the tone. And it's at odds with the nature and character of the built-up area that surrounds it. It's that simple. That's why people are reacting against it. Now, I tell you this, I'm not going to sit here tonight and get in the way of delivering this, because overall this is a really good proposal. But I can't support the delivery of architecture like that in a domestic residential context. So, in most respects, I hold that this is a really good way to deliver what is needed. But there is always, in everything human beings do, room for improvement. And I think there was room for improvement here. And I know that aesthetics are subjective, and your opinions about aesthetics won't be the same as mine. But with in mind what it is that the parish councils and local residents had to say about this, I can't vote in favour of it overall. And I'm not going to get in the way of it. So I'm going to state clearly now, I will abstain this evening, knowing that that won't hold this back. But at least I will have a clear conscience, and the people who actually are going to live around it will know that their voice was heard and somebody made a point of saying so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. I do have a couple of points. One question and a couple of points I'd like to make. Don't normally speak that often in planning committee, but the first question is just the boundary with Church Farm, or Church Hall, Church Farm. Is it just going to be a fence, or is there any planting along there as well?
So there's quite a bit of planting along there at the moment, towards the back of the site, but that's been supplemented on the development side. There's a fence proposed. So at the moment, the means of enclosure plan has got a fence which comes part of the way along the boundary, but then, like I said, towards the front of the site, nearest to London Road, where the driveway is, it's open there. So I think a fence needs to go there, but there is, in fairness, the landscaping plans do show planting along that boundary as well. It's just obviously the concern, or my concern would be, the planting will take time to establish, and at the moment it does almost look like an extension of the open space, because as you look through the gaps, it just looks, there's a driveway running through it, it's open, mown grass. I could just see children, dogs, whatever wandering through. But yeah, there is some planting proposed along there.
Thanks, Neil. There's been a lot of comment rightly this evening about the medical centre. I just want to turn my attention to the housing. Two comments. I am actually disappointed at the market housing mix. I think we all know how difficult it is for young people to get on the housing ladder. There's obviously been a lot of provision for the affordable housing, but it's for those people who don't qualify for the affordable housing, especially young people, young families, trying to get their first house. And the difference, I am disappointed in the difference in figures between the housing need for market housing that we've identified and the difference that's going to be delivered on this development. I accept the officers' points that they've made that it won't be grounds for refusal given the outline position, but I do think in this committee we do try to make sure that we provide housing for all our residents, particularly I think for those who are trying to start on to get on the housing ladder. The other thing I just wanted to say, I think it was interesting seeing the photographs of Kelvedon, especially the centre part of Kelvedon, and then looking back at the street scenes. There are a couple of street scenes where I feel that the colours in particular are just pretty bland, actually. I think I think I noted down the green streets, where I think they all seem to be white or cream. I just wish we could have tried doing, again, I don't think it's some reason for refusal, but I just want to make a comment really that I just think would have been nice if we could try to incorporate some of the local vernacular, particular colour. I think the colour of render in North Essex and Suffolk is actually really a distinctive part of the identity and the architecture of this area, and we try to incorporate that in our new developments as well. So, but again, that is not a reason for refusal. But I just wanted to make that. I just want to express my view on that. Councillor Beavis, I think we'll probably wrap up fairly shortly.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I just wanted to make the point that Councillor Ritchie made about comparing apples and pears, and I think he's absolutely right. It would be comparing apples and pears to what's going on in Sybil Headingham, and I wasn't for one moment trying to compare developers' approaches, because I'm probably closer to it than anybody, and I understand what's going on there. But I just feel, and I did mention at Planning Forum, and actually the Chairman's just mentioned herself, you know, when you look at some of the mixes of colour there, and yet for the medical centre we've come forward with red and grey for such a key building on this site, and I just feel that visually it is just austere, and like our Vice Chairman, I will abstain, not because, you know, I'm against the site or what's going on there, but I just feel that the attractiveness of the centre, I just don't find it pleasing. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, I think we've all given us a good airing, unless Councillor Richard, did you, I think, were you proposing to move this? Okay. This officer's recommendation. Councillor Bowers-Flint to second that.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could I just move those with the amended condition of 24 and also with the updated layout plans that were given on the slides this evening?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that's yep. All those in favour of granting this? All those against? And abstentions? 3 abstentions. Okay. Thank you very much, members. That application has been granted. I leave time for people to depart. We'll move on to the next application. Right, members, so just move on to the last 2 applications. I'll just check with, would you like to do these 2 together or would you like to do them separately?
So if it's okay, Madam Chairman, we've prepared a joint presentation for both the householder application and listed building consent. Obviously, the vote would need to be taken separately, but given the proposal, we thought that would be easier.
Yeah, that definitely is. Okay, so I'll pass over to, is it Neil or Chris you're doing this one? Chris, thanks.
I thought I'd do something this evening, Madam Chairman. This is an application for planning permission and listed building consent for essentially 3 elements: replacement of an existing single-storey lean-to roof material, and replacement of 2 doors, one a front and one a side/rear elevation. The proposal is located at Elm Cottage in Shalford Green in Shalford, and I'll just take you through the plan. So we have the location plan to start with. Members will recall from the previous planning committee meeting, which related to the Kirtlish listed barn at the front of the property. This proposal relates to the main house, which is Grade 2 listed. Slightly zoomed in version of the block plan. So you have an existing driveway coming off of the main road serving the dwelling. And the annotation there, so you can see the element to the rear of the property is the single-storey lean-to, and that's where the proposed replacement roof is. In terms of elevations, so again you have the outshot single-storey lean-to with the proposed replacement roof. You can see one of the doors on the side elevation, and just a couple of photos to show the existing. So again, that shows the existing roof, which is proposed for replacement very neatly, and then the proposed elevation. So again, you can just see the different material treatments on the roof and the new door on the side, and just the roof plan as well, which again just shows the different material treatments. And then a couple of photos so you can see the existing front door, which is the side of the property, the proposed replacement front door, and then the rear door in the lean-to element, which again is proposed, and that's the detail of the proposed replacement door. So As explained, planning permission and listed building consent is sought in this case under two separate applications. The application, given the site is a Grade 2 listed building, we have consulted our historic buildings consultant from a heritage perspective. We have no concerns about the impact of any element of this proposal in terms of the impact on the designated heritage assets, and there'd be no other negative detrimental impacts upon the character of the area or neighbouring residential amenities. So the recommendation is to grant both planning permission and listed building consent for the proposal in accordance with the conditions that are outlined within Appendix 1 of the respective reports. Happy to answer any questions, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Does anybody have any questions at all? I think no, in which case would someone like to move the first application, which is 25. This is the householder application. So that's going to be seconded by Councillor Holland, is that right?
Yeah.
Opposed by Councillor Beresford. All those in favour of granting this application? Thank you, members. Now come on to the second part of this, is the listed building consent. Can I have somebody to move that, please? Councillor Holland, and a seconder. Whose hand did I see first? Councillor Hooks. All those in favour of granting this? Okay, that vote has also been granted. Thank you very much, members. That brings us to the end of the meeting this evening. Yes, just to let you know, members, we don't have sufficient items for the next meeting, so the meeting on 26th is going to be cancelled. You'll be relieved here just for the bank holiday weekend, so, or just after, isn't it? Thanks.